It began with a knock at the door. Two men in black uniforms. Shiny badges that caught the sunlight. Clipboards in hand. They weren't police, but they acted like it. And their demand? That a golden retriever named Daisy be removed from the neighborhood. But what the so-called HOA cops didn't realize, what no one in the cul-de-sac could have predicted, was that Daisy wasn't just any dog. She belonged to Mayor Richard Halston. And what started as a petty attempt at intimidation would unravel into one of the strangest, most revealing scandals the town of Brookhaven, Illinois had ever seen. Brookhaven was the kind of place people moved to for peace. Tree-lined streets, red brick homes with white trim, yards neatly trimmed under the watchful eyes of the neighborhood's homeowners association. On paper it was idyllic, but beneath the polished surface, tension simmered. The HOA had grown notorious for strict, almost petty rules. Mailbox a half-inch too tall? Fine. Garden hose left out overnight? Warning letter. And dogs? The rules were even tighter. No aggressive breeds. No pets over 65 pounds. No excessive barking. The HOA board argued it was about protecting the community's image. But for residents, it often felt like harassment dressed up as policy. At the center of it all was Linda Halston, the mayor's wife, who spent most afternoons walking Daisy, their 6-year-old golden retriever. Daisy was gentle, adored by neighborhood children. She wore a pink collar with a jingling tag and had a habit of carrying her own leash in her mouth when Linda unclipped it. To most people, Daisy was just a dog. But to Linda, she was therapy. The mayor's schedule was brutal, and Linda had been quietly battling anxiety after a health scare. Daisy wasn't just a pet. She was a lifeline, which made what happened next all the more devastating. On a warm Saturday morning in July 2022, Linda answered the door to find two men standing on her porch. They introduced themselves as HOA security enforcement. The first, Frank Devereaux, was in his late 40s, stocky, pale-skinned, with close-cropped graying hair and a badge pinned to his chest. The second, Colin Reeves, was tall and wiry, with a shaved head and deep-set eyes. He wore a cap pulled low, the brim shadowing his face. Both men wore black uniforms that mimicked police gear, down to the belts with flashlights and batons. "Ma'am," Devereaux said, "we had complaints about your dog. We're here to inform you that Daisy is in violation of HOA code. She's too large to be kept in this community." Linda froze. "That's impossible. Daisy isn't even 70 pounds. She's never hurt anyone." Reeves leaned forward. "Size doesn't matter. Rules are rules. If the dog isn't gone by Monday, we'll impound her." Impound. The word hung heavy in the summer air. Linda's hands trembled as she clutched Daisy's collar. "You can't just take her. She's part of my family." Devereaux smirked. "Then think of this as a courtesy visit. Next time, we won't be so polite." They left a printed notice, complete with fake legalese and a forged HOA seal, and walked away without another word. Linda collapsed into a chair, Daisy curling up at her feet, unaware of the storm brewing. That evening, Mayor Halston returned home. When Linda handed him the notice, his jaw tightened. This is nonsense. There's no such thing as HOA security. The HOA doesn't have cops. They barely have authority to tell people what color to paint their fences. But the notice looked official. The seal matched other HOA documents. The language mimicked city ordinances. Halston knew immediately this wasn't just overreach. It was fraud. And as mayor, he couldn't let it slide. Halston contacted Detective Marissa Caldwell, a seasoned investigator with a reputation for cutting through lies. Caldwell examined the notice. "This is a forgery. A damn good one. Whoever did this has access to HOA files, or someone on the inside helping them." She leaned back in her chair. "Mayor, this isn't about a dog. This is intimidation. And intimidation always points to power." Halston nodded grimly. He knew Brookhaven politics well. And he knew the HOA board had enemies. Caldwell built her list of suspects. Evelyn Masters, the HOA president, a 58-year-old widow with a reputation for micromanagement. She once fined a family $250 because their garage door was painted the wrong shade of beige. Martin Keene, the HOA treasurer, a man with gambling debts and whispers of skimming from the HOA budget. Gerard Fletcher, a former board member forced out after a heated scandal involving kickbacks from contractors. Any one of them could have benefited from creating a shadow security force to intimidate residents. But which of them was reckless enough to target the mayor's family? Word spread quickly. Some neighbors whispered support. We've all had run-ins with those fake cops. Others kept silent, fearful of retaliation. A teenager, interviewed anonymously, admitted, "Yeah, I've seen them. They roll through the neighborhood at night in an unmarked SUV, shining spotlights into people's yards. They scared my little brother half to death." The fake cops weren't a one-off. They'd been operating for months. Caldwell's team traced the paper used in the notice. It wasn't store-bought. It was custom watermarked, ordered through a local print shop. The customer's name? Martin Keene. When confronted, Keene broke quickly. "I didn't mean for it to go this far. I just wanted to scare some people into following the rules. But it wasn't my idea. Devereaux and Reeves, they run the muscle. They said they'd handle it." And then he dropped the bomb. "They weren't after the dog. They were after you, Mayor Halston." According to Keene, Devereaux and Reeves have been hired to tighten compliance. But their real agenda was political. Brookhaven was gearing up for a bitter mayoral election, and Halston had been pushing for a citywide audit of HOA finances. If he won, the HOA's cozy empire could collapse. Daisy wasn't the target. She was bait, a way to rile the mayor's family, to make him look weak, distracted, vulnerable. But the plan backfired. Detective Caldwell set a trap. Linda walked Daisy the next evening, deliberately near the HOA clubhouse. Federal agents hid in unmarked vans. Sure enough, the SUV appeared. Devereaux and Reeves stepped out, flashing their fake badges. "Ma'am," Reeves sneered, "we warned you." Before he could finish, agents swarmed, guns drawn. The fake cops were shoved against the hood of their own SUV, their badges clattering to the pavement. The neighborhood erupted in cheers as word spread. The fake cops had been caught. In custody, Devereaux stayed silent. But Reeves cracked. "It wasn't just us. We were hired, paid in cash. They wanted us to shake people down, make examples. The dog was just one job." When asked who hired them, Reeves hesitated. It came from the top, but not just the HOA board. Bigger, much bigger. Detective Caldwell leaned in. "Bigger how?" Reeves swallowed. "Let's just say, the mayor isn't the only one with power in this town. And the people we answer to? They won't stop just because you caught us." The courtroom was packed when Devereaux and Reeves were arraigned. But halfway through the hearing, a commotion erupted in the gallery. A man shouted from the back, "Let them go or the dog dies." Security dragged him out, but the damage was done. The community gasped. The case wasn't over. It was only just beginning. And for Mayor Halston and Daisy, the real danger was still ahead. The arraignment of Frank Devereaux and Colin Reeves was supposed to be straightforward. Two men in cuffs. A judge prepared to read charges. But the shout from the gallery, "Let them go or the dog dies," detonated like a bomb. Gasps filled the room. Linda clutched Daisy's leash, her knuckles white. Reporters scrambled for angles. The bailiff tackled the shouting man, dragging him out. But the damage was done. For the first time, the mayor realized this wasn't over. Daisy wasn't safe. None of them were. Outside the courthouse, Linda trembled as cameras swarmed. "Mrs. Halston, do you believe Daisy's life is in danger?" "Mayor, are these threats political?" Halston shielded his wife. "This isn't about a dog. This is about criminals hiding behind community rules. And we will not be intimidated." But inside, he felt the weight of fear. Because the man in the gallery hadn't been random. He wore an HOA polo shirt. Detective Marissa Caldwell pulled Halston aside. "They're escalating. Whoever is behind this wants you rattled. Your wife, your dog, it's leverage." Halston clenched his jaw. "So we protect them?" Caldwell shook her head. "It's not that simple. You're running for re-election. Every move you make is public. If this goes deeper, and I believe it does, Daisy isn't just a dog anymore. She's a symbol. Meanwhile, the HOA board held an emergency meeting. Evelyn Masters, the president, slammed her gavel. We do not condone what happened, but this scandal is destroying us. Martin Keene, the treasurer, sweated through his shirt. You think I wanted this? Devereaux and Reeves were supposed to scare people, not start a war with the mayor. Gerard Fletcher, the ousted member, smirked from the back row. Maybe that's the point. Maybe someone wanted this to blow up. The board turned. Who? Fletcher's grin widened. That's the question, isn't it? Enter Rachel Linwood, a 29-year-old investigative reporter for the Chicago Tribune. She smelled a bigger story. HOA corruption wasn't sexy, but fake cops, death threats, and a mayor's golden retriever? That was national. She interviewed residents. An elderly man confessed. They pulled me over once. Said my lawn was too long. Threatened a fine. I thought they were real cops until they laughed and drove off. Rachel typed furiously. The deeper she dug, the clearer it became. This wasn't just about Brookhaven. Other suburbs had reported HOA patrols, too. Was it a network? That night, Linda let Daisy out into the yard. A sound snapped the silence. Tires screeching. A shadow near the fence. Daisy barked, loud, ferocious. Linda's heart froze. The next morning, they found a note tied to the fence with red string. Next time, she won't bark. She'll bleed. Mayor Halston stormed into Caldwell's office. This isn't intimidation anymore. This is terrorism. Caldwell nodded. Then we treat it like terrorism. But Richard, listen, they're targeting Daisy because they know it gets to you. We need to separate your family from the politics. Halston's eyes darkened. They touch my wife or my dog again, and politics won't save them. Caldwell's team followed the money. Keene's gambling debts linked to a shell company in Nevada. That company funneled cash to Devereaux and Reeves. But the shell company wasn't owned by Keene. It was tied to a construction conglomerate bidding for Brookhaven's multi-million-dollar housing expansion project. The CEO? Victor Armand, a Chicago power broker with deep political ties. Why would a construction tycoon fund fake HOA cops? Unless the HOA was just a pawn. Halston sat at his kitchen table, Daisy's head resting on his lap. Linda whispered, "Maybe we should send her away for a while. To your sisters. Just until this is over." Halston shook his head. That's what they want. They want us scared, broken. Daisy stays. But deep down, he wondered. Was he protecting Daisy or using her as a political shield? The line blurred. Rachel Linwood received an anonymous email. Attached, surveillance photos of Devereaux and Reeves meeting with men in suits at a downtown hotel. The sender wrote, "Not just HOA. This goes higher. Follow Armand." Rachel hesitated. Leaks like this were dangerous. But she knew one thing. If Armand was involved, this wasn't a neighborhood squabble. It was organized crime disguised as community enforcement. Brookhaven's mayoral race loomed. Halston's opponent, Councilman Peter Latham, seized the moment. Ladies and gentlemen, we all love dogs. But this mayor has turned a personal pet into a circus. While he obsesses over threats, our streets crumble and our schools suffer. Crowds cheered. Headlines questioned. Was the mayor exploiting Daisy for sympathy? The fake cops' plan had worked better than expected. Detective Caldwell arranged a sting. She sent an undercover agent posing as a nervous homeowner asking for HOA protection. Devereaux, still out on bail, bit. In a recorded meeting, he boasted, "We're not just Brookhaven. We're in 6 neighborhoods. And we've got backing. People with money. People who can bury a mayor." The audio leaked. But so did something else. A hit list. On it, circled in red. Halston, Caldwell, Rachel Linwood, and at the bottom, asset leverage Daisy. It happened on a rainy Thursday. Linda walked Daisy along Elmwood Drive. A van screeched to a halt. The door slid open. Masked men lunged. Daisy barked furiously, snapping at their hands. Linda screamed. Neighbors rushed out. The men fled empty-handed. But they left something behind, a syringe. Caldwell examined it. They were going to drug her, kidnap her, use her as leverage. Linda collapsed into tears. Daisy pressed against her leg, tail tucked, eyes wide. The dog was no longer safe. Brookhaven divided. Some residents rallied behind the Halstons. If they can come for Daisy, they can come for any of us. Others grumbled. Why risk everything for one dog? Maybe the mayor should step down. Rachel Linwood wrote, "The fight for Daisy isn't about a dog. It's about power. It's about whether criminals can hijack communities under the guise of rules." An informant tipped Caldwell. Devereaux and Reeves were meeting at a warehouse near the river. Agents raided the site. Inside, fake badges, uniforms, stacks of forged HOA documents, and files on dozens of residents, blackmail material, personal data, even family photos. But one file was different. It was labeled Operation Golden Paw. Inside, photos of Daisy, notes on her walks, times, routes, patterns, and one chilling line, delivery scheduled, buyer confirmed. Buyer? Detective Caldwell stormed into Halston's office. "Richard, they weren't going to kill Daisy. They were going to sell her." Halston froze. "Sell her? To who?" Caldwell dropped the file on his desk. "Not just anyone. Someone overseas. Someone willing to pay six figures." Halston stared in disbelief. "For a golden retriever?" Caldwell's voice was grim. "Not for a retriever. For the mayor's dog. To prove they can reach into the highest office in this town and take whatever they want." The mayor looked down at Daisy sleeping peacefully at his feet, and he realized this wasn't just about a neighborhood or an election or even organized crime. This was war. The words on the file folder burned in Mayor Richard Halston's mind. Delivery scheduled. Buyer confirmed. Detective Caldwell's voice echoed. They weren't going to kill Daisy. They were going to sell her. Linda gasped, clutching Daisy's collar like a lifeline. "Sell her? To who?" Caldwell's expression was grim. "Not just anyone. Someone overseas. Someone willing to pay six figures." For the first time, the mayor realized this wasn't just local corruption. This was international. And Daisy, his wife's therapy dog, his family's protector, was at the center of it. The warehouse evidence revealed a chilling web. Bank transfers from shell companies in the Cayman Islands. Encrypted emails between HOA board members and unknown foreign contacts. Photos of luxury animals, exotic birds, purebred dogs, even horses. Rachel Linwood, the journalist, pieced it together. This isn't just intimidation. This is smuggling. They're moving animals like contraband. Caldwell added, and Daisy was a crown jewel, not because of her breed, but because of her owner. Taking the mayor's dog proves they can reach anyone. Halston stared at Daisy curled at Linda's feet. Every bark, every wag of her tail now felt like a countdown. If he went public, Daisy became a bigger target. If he stayed silent, the criminals gained ground. At the dinner table, Linda whispered, "Maybe we should send her away, somewhere safe." But Halston shook his head. "That's what they want. They want us scared. Daisy stays. But we fight smarter." The HOA board splintered. Evelyn Masters, the president, tried to distance herself. "I never authorized fake cops. I never knew about animal trafficking." But Martin Keene, the treasurer, cracked under pressure. "I was drowning in debt. Armin's people offered me a way out. All I had to do was funnel HOA money into their accounts. I didn't know about the dog at first. I swear." Caldwell slammed her hands on the table. "You knew enough. You helped them build this." Keene wept. "They'll kill me. You don't understand." She leaned closer. "Then give us something before they do." Keene whispered a single name, Larson. Victor Armin's enforcer. Ex-military. Merciless. Rumored to run enforcement for Armin's empire. And according to Keene, he was already in Brookhaven. At 2 a.m., Linda woke to Daisy growling at the back door. A shadow moved across the yard. A glint of metal. Glass shattered. Before Linda could scream, Daisy lunged. Her bark thundered through the house. The intruder bolted, leaving behind a crowbar and a blood trail. Police traced the blood. DNA confirmed. It belonged to Jonas Larson. The enforcer was real, and he was hunting. Councilman Peter Latham seized the chaos. On live TV, he sneered, "While the mayor's dog is guarded like Fort Knox, the people of Brookhaven suffer. This administration has lost control. If he can't protect his own pet, how can he protect us?" Poll numbers shifted. Headlines screamed, "Daisy scandal threatens Halston's re-election." The criminal's plan was working. Rachel Linwood published her expose. Operation Golden Paw. How fake HOA cops expose an international smuggling ring. It spread like wildfire. But hours later, her apartment was ransacked. Laptop gone. Files missing. On her mirror, scrawled in red, "Dogs aren't the only ones that disappear." With pressure mounting, the FBI stepped in. Agent Thomas Vega, a methodical strategist, took over. This isn't about a dog anymore. This is racketeering, fraud, international smuggling. We bring them down like a cartel. But Vega warned the mayor. High-profile cases use high-profile leverage. Daisy's not safe until this ends. Caldwell's team tapped Keene's phone. One night, they caught a call. Delivery is delayed. Asset still under protection. Waiting for orders from overseas. Asset, Daisy. Another voice replied, "If you can't take the dog, take the owner. Break the mayor and the leash will follow." Halston, defiant, held a community rally. Daisy sat aside, tail wagging, pink collar glinting under the lights. "This dog is not just mine. She represents every family in Brookhaven who's been bullied by corruption, and I promise you they will not win." Cheers erupted. But in the shadows, Caldwell spotted a man watching. Tall, muscular, a scar across his jaw. Jonas Larson. That night, Caldwell received intel. A hit was planned during Halston's morning jog. Snipers were deployed. Federal agents spread out. Halston jogged with Daisy trotting beside him. Through binoculars, Larson's iprestoscope. He steadied his aim, pulled the trigger. A deafening crack split the air. Halston stumbled. Daisy barked furiously. Agents swarmed. But the bullet hadn't hit the mayor. It struck the leash, snapping Daisy free. She bolted into the woods. Panic erupted. Linda sobbed. "They'll take her. They'll kill her." Caldwell shouted orders. "Lock down every exit. Find that dog before they do." For hours, agents combed the woods. Daisy's paw prints led deeper, toward the highway. But they weren't the only ones tracking her. At dawn, a trucker reported seeing a golden retriever forced into a black SUV near exit 14. Caldwell's radio crackled. "We've lost Daisy." Repeat, "Daisy has been taken." Linda collapsed. Halston's fists clenched. And in a warehouse across state lines, Jonas Larson patted Daisy's head, a cruel smile on his face. He lifted his phone and made the call. "Asset secured. Prepare the transfer." The line crackled with a foreign accent. "Excellent. The mayor will soon learn. Everyone has a price." The words crackled over Caldwell's radio like a death sentence. "We've lost Daisy." Repeat, "Daisy has been taken." Mayor Richard Halston froze. Linda collapsed into his arms, sobbing. Their golden retriever, their lifeline, their symbol of defiance, was gone. And somewhere out there, Jonas Larson was preparing to deliver her like stolen cargo. Back at City Hall, Halston stared at the wall of maps the FBI had set up. His voice shook. "She's just a dog, but she's also family. And if they can take Daisy, they can take anything." Agent Thomas Vega placed a firm hand on his shoulder. "We'll get her back, but we need to be careful. They're expecting us to chase." Halston's jaw clenched. "Then let's surprise them." Rachel Linwood, bruised from the break-in at her apartment, refused to back down. She studied the leaked financial records again. Transfers from Armand's accounts matched timestamps of HOA enforcement jobs. But one note stood out. OPGP final delivery, Newark 48 hours. Golden Paw, Daisy's code name. Rachel ran to Caldwell. "They're moving her by ship. Overseas. We have 2 days." Keene, the disgraced treasurer, was their reluctant ally. You don't understand Larson. He doesn't just follow orders. He enjoys this. If Daisy gets to that port, she's gone forever. Caldwell slammed her fist on the table. Then we intercept before the docks. Where does he stash transfers? Keene swallowed hard. There's a farmhouse, abandoned, outside Joliet. He uses it as a holding spot. Night fell as SWAT units surrounded the crumbling farmhouse. Inside, voices echoed. Men laughing. Daisy's muffled whine. Halston gripped Caldwell's arm. I'm going in. Caldwell shook her head. You're the mayor. You stay back. But Halston's eyes burned. I'm also her owner. Flashbangs shattered windows. Agents stormed inside. Gunfire cracked. Halston ducked behind a wall, heart pounding. He glimpsed Daisy, locked in a cage, tail thumping desperately. Then he saw him. Jonas Larson. Scar jaw, rifle in hand. Their eyes met. Larson sneered. You want her? Come take her. The firefight was chaos. Agents exchanged fire with Larson's men. Halston charged toward Daisy's cage. A bullet ricocheted inches from his head. Larson lunged, tackling him. The two men crashed to the ground. You're weak, Larson hissed, fists pounding. You let Mutt define you. Halston spat blood. She's not just a mutt. She's proof you don't own us. With a surge of fury, Halston swung the crowbar lying nearby. It connected with Larson's jaw, dropping him cold. Halston fumbled with the cage lock. His hands shook. Daisy whimpered. Finally, it clicked. The door swung open. Daisy leapt into his arms, licking his face, tail wagging furiously. Linda's sobs echoed as she ran in. She fell to her knees, wrapping her arms around both husband and dog. For a moment, amid the smoke and chaos, the world felt right again. Victor Armand didn't go down so easily. Federal agents tracked him to a penthouse in Chicago. When confronted, he smiled coldly. You think arresting me will end this? HOA boards, construction projects, enforcement teams, they're all mine. I built this city skeleton. Agent Vega snapped the cuffs on his wrists, and now it's collapsing. As Armand was dragged out, reporters shouted. Cameras flashed. The empire of intimidation was finally in chains. Months later, the courtroom was packed again, but this time, it was Armand and Larson on trial. Rachel Linwood's reporting had exposed the entire network. The shell companies, the fake cops, the animal smuggling. Caldwell testified. So did Keene. So did Linda, her voice trembling as she described the night Daisy was nearly taken. And then came the mayor himself. Halston stood tall, Daisy's pink collar clutched in his hand. This case was never just about a dog. It was about fear, about power, about whether criminals could hijack the places we call home. And we chose to fight back. The jury deliberated only 2 hours. Guilty. Armand sentenced to 25 years. Larson given life. The HOA dissolved. Its assets seized. Brookhaven breathed for the first time in years. At a press conference, Mayor Halston stood beside Linda and Daisy. Daisy wagged happily, oblivious to her fame. Some say she's just a dog, Halston told the crowd. But Daisy became more than that. She became a symbol that even in the face of corruption, innocence deserves protection, that even the smallest life matters. The crowd roared. Late that night, Halston sat on the porch. Daisy curled at his feet. Caldwell joined him, sipping coffee. You won, she said. Halston shook his head. We survived. But the system that allowed this? It's still out there. Different faces. Same playbook. He looked at Daisy, sleeping peacefully. Sometimes, it takes losing what you love most to remind you why you fight. Dear viewers, this story began with a dog and a fake HOA. But beneath it lay greed, intimidation, and organized crime. The criminals believed they could control a community through fear. They thought power was measured in money, threats, and leverage. But they underestimated a family's love and a community's resilience. Corruption often hides behind uniforms, titles, and rules. But no matter how official it looks, power without accountability is just bullying with a badge. If you were in Mayor Halston's shoes, facing threats to your family, your community, and even your dog, would you have fought back or walked away? If you found this story interesting, make sure you subscribe, comment, like, and share for more.